Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. We record these interviews so potential buyers have more information about the seller and the business to help them make a buying decision. Now, before we dive in, let's go over a brief summary of this business. It is an Amazon FBA business created in January of 2020 in the occasions and gifts niche. And the average monthly revenue for the business is $55,889 and makes an average of $10,632 per month in net profit. The assets included in the sale are an Amazon Seller Central account with 10 SKUs, supplier and freelancer relationships, a trademark, and just as a disclaimer, inventory is not normally included in the list price, but further details can be provided to unlockers. So for everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 66783 to learn more about the business, or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So that's a brief overview of the business for sale. Let's hear from the seller with me today. So welcome to the show, Alex. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, I'm looking forward to learning more about you and your business. So to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses or businesses in general?
Sure. I'll go back. This would be my third business venture that I've been involved in. When I was in university here in Ireland, in my third year, I started a production company, film and animation, with a few friends of mine. And we quickly grew that business to be quite a reputable marketing company in Ireland. And over the following 7 years, we worked together on projects for clients all over the world and had a great exposure to a lot of different businesses through that. We were creating the content and the assets, and as a result, got to see the inner workings of every type of business. Subsequent to that, I was asked to join an e-commerce business. I'd done, I suppose, 7 or 8 years in digital media, and I'd always wanted to go into products. So when that opportunity came, I pivoted and joined a company that worked predominantly in making clothing out of recycled materials, predominantly polyester that was recycled from oceanic waste. So I was there for 2 years in a marketing role, but generally it was another startup where you're doing absolutely everything. You're doing product development, sourcing manufacturers, building relationships. So that 2-year contract was drawing to an end, and I was tasked with the final task I was given was to list the items that we had made, the products, on Amazon. And at that point, I'd never even purchased something on Amazon. I'm living in Ireland. Amazon is quite prevalent here, but I'd never used the platform. So my first entry to Amazon was actually trying to sell. And I very naively thought you just, can list products and away you go. So quickly within the first week, I realized that this Amazon ecosystem, one, is enormous, and it would take a lot more than 2 months to build a successful business on there, or even to really list our products and have a good chance. But I was fascinated by the ability that every Amazon FBA seller, I'm sure, has seen, that you can pretty much be selling in any market around the world. And what was really appealing to me was that we had started product first in e-commerce business. We'd really worked on the product and the supply chain, whereas on Amazon, you can really start customer first and get all of the information you need. So when that 2 months ended, I was looking for the next thing to do, and this was right in front of me, starting an Amazon FBA business. So I spent 6 months to a year really just studying and working out, the systems, and started playing around with importing products and making a few mistakes, and eventually came to this product line which I'm in, which was informed by a lot of different decisions I'd learned in the previous year and a half. And yeah, the rest is history. I've been building this brand ever since.
Wow. What an awesome 2 years that must have been, where with the startup, like you said, you were forced to do everything, which involved sourcing, product development, working with manufacturers, and then you were forced to figure out how to upload that onto Amazon FBA. It's almost like you had this very nice course paid to learn opportunity about e-commerce and then about Amazon FBA. And I can definitely see how this became as successful as it did and as quickly as it did, given what you just told me.
Yeah, any startup you go into, it's just a crash course in learning everything. We were textiles based. We were learning about fabric compositions. Amazon was kind of the afterthought. We were a website first business. And now the business is entirely B2B. It actually doesn't even operate in a B2C model anymore. But yeah, it was really doing things the hard way. And when I started to look at Amazon, obviously it's very difficult to build a brand on Amazon, but a lot of the way we'd done it in that startup was really, we didn't have the data, we wouldn't have had customer insights and things like that we can kind of estimate from Amazon. So it was a really steep learning curve, but one which was invaluable going into this business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about this specific business then. It's been only 3 years since you launched the business to where it is now, to this point of being able to exit it. So why are you deciding to sell it instead of keeping it and growing it further?
Yeah, that's a really good question and a really important one. I've had two major life events happen in the last, year and in the last 3 weeks. We had our son 3 weeks ago. Our first child was born. So that has put a lot of pressure on what was the other life event, which is we're building a house. And we here in Ireland, as it is in most parts of the world, but Ireland in particular, it's a very long process. And because of what's happening in the world, since we began this project, the entire project has doubled in price. And there's a bit of pressure now that we have a kid to build our house. But the project, which I started a year ago because of the geopolitics at the moment, has nearly doubled in price. In fact, it's probably over doubled in price. So our plan has changed. We're at a time where liquidity has become important. And I kind of looked at everything I'm involved in terms of business and said, look, right now, this would make sense for us to do. And it's probably the only business that I still have an involvement in that, as soon as I contacted Empire Flippers, it was amazing at how quickly there was a road to potentially gaining liquidity from the business. So I just kept following on from my initial kind of valuation, and it just made more and more sense as I talked to the family and plan our coming 2 years.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, first of all, on you starting your family of 3, then moving on to your house. I guess the congratulations are in order once that is actually constructed. Yeah, it makes sense. I hear a lot of similar reasons from a lot of sellers: life transition, family, house, going interestingly from online to literally brick and mortar in terms of the house. Okay, so this business has grown pretty quickly, 3 years. What did you learn from building this that worked, that you think contributed to the success that you experienced?
I always had a goal of making sure the overall account's performance in terms of customer satisfaction was extremely high. So what that would inevitably lead back to is that product development and customer service, the product quality and return rates to be kept low, and a very high emphasis on product quality. So I spent a lot of time building a very robust supply chain. One, because I wanted it to be bulletproof in terms of quality, and 2, I wanted to be able to repeat and launch products quite easily, and I wanted everything in place to do that, because I think that is probably one of the strengths of this account. Keeping the customer happy, which is in line with Amazon's own wording on their site and their own mission.
Their own incentives as well, yes.
Yeah, so if a customer does a return, usually it's a full refund, but the return rate's really low. And then in Asia, where I would be sourcing a lot of my products from, I built a very, very strong team. And I've brought tens of thousands of products through that team. And the rate of the mistakes or anything that happens there is extremely low. And it took me a long time to find a company that keep that high quality rate. And I interviewed a lot at the start. So that would be my biggest learning, is having a good, smooth supply chain. Obviously doing all of your front end analytics well, but building a team that is amazing to work with and that won't let you down. And I really do have that in place now.
Yeah. Let's actually talk a little bit more about that, because I think that is more important than is really talked about. And you just mentioned you essentially vetted your suppliers, and it sounds like you had a bit of an interview process. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I guess, especially in the beginning, how you determined who would be a right fit, or what, I don't know, a supplier did where you thought, okay, this is the right supplier to work with?
Yeah, so what I focused on was building a relationship with an independent company in China, in Shenzhen, who I wanted to be my hands and eyes on the ground. And everything I do now goes through individuals there who I would have a very high level of contact with. They're probably the only suppliers who I have a direct line to, and they're on my WhatsApp. And it's just when they have a question or I have a question, it's just direct communication. So I have a large supplier pool of manufacturers that would all go to one focal point in Asia, and they handle absolutely everything from there. So everything is spotted before it leaves China. Everything, quality control is done there. And as I said, I've done this with other companies with the quality control, but still miss things. But now after 2+ solid years with these guys, it's just been incredible. I would put more faith in them being better at the job than me being out there doing it myself. So, and having the products in my hands. So they've been invaluable. And that whole process and supply chain on that end has been fantastic.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking your previous experience with the eco-friendly brand, the fact that you did have to spend a lot more. You said you did things a bit less efficiently before you started working on Amazon. I think that might have been actually to your benefit in a sense, where it kind of forced you to really get specific on the quality of the products and pay attention to the supply chain relationship with manufacturers, and then work on a platform that is far more efficient like Amazon. So it looks like, from the surface at least, that you've really taken your experience and really applied it well here.
Yeah, I think so. You always do things the hard way the first time around. And another thing I'll add is the importance of redundancies and stress testing. Everything have learned the hard way in my e-commerce business. Everything I would do, then apply a mental stress test to it, meaning if there's one supplier who creates quite a simple product where there might be many more in China who can create the product, I will go ahead, even if I have a good relationship with one manufacturer, I'll go away and start interviewing 2 backups. Just so if, during coronavirus, different districts are being shut down, we didn't skip a beat. We were able to pivot. We had relationships with other manufacturers who could step in for that time period. And that gives us an opportunity to test them out and see how they're doing. And there's price competitiveness then. And that just comes with time of building the brand and the products. So yeah, it's a good system, and one that I look at and kind of say, wow, in 2 years, all of these different connections, it's amazing what can be done.
Yeah, and I think that's a very valuable component to this business for whoever decides to acquire it. So was there anything you tried with this business that didn't work out as well?
Yeah, I learned a big lesson last year. You start in January, you look at the year ahead, you say, let's go for it. The business was doing very well by the start of last year. There was good cash flow, there was good capital reserves. I said, I'm just going to go for it and start launching products as fast as possible and designing products and kind of ramp the team up. And what I learned in the second 6 months of last year is that when you really start compounding and launching products one on top, the costs really compound, and the amount of dedication and time that you can give to each product launch, it compounds as well. And you inevitably don't give enough attention as a one-man team, you see, because I'm working on this part-time. I'm involved in 1 or 2 other things. And for me to do that effectively, I needed another team member or 2. We needed our specific roles. And that was just, I launched 3 products probably in succession from July, August, September, October. And your cash flow takes a hit because your PPC campaigns are through the roof, and your shipping and your storage. And I found myself kind of spread quite thinly. And yeah, that was probably one thing I learned, is do one product launch at a time, give it a bit of breathing space, move on to the next. Don't just throw it all out at once and think you can do it. Now, if a team was bigger, that is definitely the approach to take. But as a one-man band growing it, just a few product launches a year, do them really well. And that is what has worked really solidly.
Yeah, well said. I think it's very easy to get excited by the initial momentum and just kind of continue to build off of that.
Yeah, you kind of just see never-ending gains, but don't weigh up the inputs required as such. And that all harks back to really maintaining a high-quality account. You don't want any of those things slipping, and you want to just be above all of the different aspects. And I manage everything. I manage the PPC, I manage the launches. I oversee the graphic design with the graphic designer, but I'm hands-on with a lot of it because it's quite easy to be. It's only a few hours here and there. Yeah, multiple launches then have quite a high compounding effect on the time requirement.
Well, that actually segues very nicely into the next question, which is about the work that you do to maintain the business currently. So it sounds like you have a few product launches per year. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do at the moment to maintain the operations of the business?
Yeah, so the way I see it is there's 2 modes for this business. There's like the general maintenance mode, where I check in for maybe 2 hours, within 2 hours a week, have my vital signs checked. I have a spreadsheet And I just quickly go through everything. I check my keyword rankings, I check my BSR, I just do a little vitals check. And then I'll get push messages if, of any customer messages or things like that. So in maintenance mode, it's really minimal, which is great. And then there's kind of the growth mode, which is, next quarter I'm going to get 2 products ready for launch over the next 4 months, say. So then I go back, because the supply chain is kind of a rinse and repeat supply chain. This is now quite easy. I just have to generate a business idea, which within the gifting category, I have lists of different keywords to enter that are potential keywords to go after. So I do a little bit of research and say, okay, this looks like a good opportunity. I go out to my suppliers who can supply most of the products, do a bit of work with the graphic designer, and then they'll all get back to me and say, okay, yeah, here's the pricing, press go whenever you want. So for maintenance mode, it's pretty much just an hour or 2 here and there with the laptop. And then in growth mode, you could be up to maybe I go to an 8-hour week or just a few evenings a week, line up a product. And then when I press go from the suppliers, everybody knows their place, or everybody knows the touch points all the way, from the suppliers going to Shenzhen, everything gets centralized there. And then one will be sent to a photographer, the graphic designer knows what they're doing. You just got to say to them, look, this is what we're looking at. Everything gets put in the boat. They get a selection of, do you want fast shipping, slow shipping, or do you want to go by air? And then the 3PL in America is amazing. It's all just a quick online interface. I make the labels, or I just go directly to Amazon, depending on the time of year. And yeah, that's pretty much how it all works.
Nice. So even when it's more involved during the launch periods, it sounds like everything has been, all the specializations have been defined and everything's been delegated out. And it's just a matter of reaching out to those different people to get into that launch mode.
Yeah, exactly. And I've kept the business as a one-man band. The launch side of it, I quite enjoy, but I could see it being quite a specialized area, especially in terms of PPC. And PPC would be the one area where I have probably looked at outsourcing it once or twice, but haven't found the right candidate to take it on, because you can't do everything yourself. Well, I'm probably showing that you probably can, but if you really wanted to grow beyond what I'm doing, which is, I think, there to be done, identifying a few areas and saying, okay, you specialize in PPC, you do the supply chain, I'll do the account management, then the growth and time division there be a lot higher.
Yeah, and not only that, I think having a business that is exitable, a lot of buyers don't want to acquire a full-time job. So I think it's fair for you to have these different processes and to be thinking about these ways to even further outsource certain parts of the role, which sounds like an opportunity for growth in the future, which leads to the next question, actually, which is, if you were to keep the business, what are some ways you would try to grow it?
Yeah, this is one that I've kind of written down a number of times, because it's pretty clear that I would just keep repeating the products that are there, entering, because it's gifting covers a variety of keywords, occasions, demographics. And I've sorted through a lot of that, and I'd have a few high priorities. So I just keep going through the priority list one by one and bringing on new products for new demographics, but using the system that's already underlying this to do it really quickly and effectively with a lot of data to act on. And then there's definitely low-hanging fruit, which I would be looking at, and I was going to look at this year, which is just variations, simple things like color variations and wording variations and things like that, which would open up existing products which already have a selling history to a wider market. And I 100% sell in the US. I always forget what the program's called, where Amazon will still branch US sales into Canada and Mexico, but I haven't actively gone after either market. So definitely entering new markets. That was high on my list as well. Canada, the UK, into Europe, which would be easier for me as I'm based here in Ireland. Widening the product portfolio, because the mentality going into this product line was I was trying to grow an initial capital sum that I had, leaving the previous business. I say, what can I do here? Well, this is a good system because, one, it's not passive investing. You can grow a business and you can actually have an input that will give it a better chance of growing your investment. And then as you look at different product categories and do product research, I realized that the gifting category, if you get all these horror stories of listings being taken down by hijackers or people potentially coming in and attacking a brand, if you're dispersed through gifting, through loads of different keywords, that no one product is exposed to an attack or to anything negative happening, the Amazon space, you can get things thrown at you. So the fact that none of my products are too similar in terms of the customer base is, if something happens in one product, if it ever happens, the rest of the account would be completely ineffective. So it's nicely diversified. And I was always looking for a low exposure to risk in that sense. I look at it as a stool. And the more legs I put on the stool, the better. So every product is just a new leg on the stool. It makes it sturdier. If one gets knocked off, it's not the end of the world. And that was kind of the ethos from the start.
Yeah, that's a very unique way of looking at a brand line, because usually a lot of products and a lot of, I guess, Amazon education about how to properly grow an Amazon business is about creating products that are very related to each other that people can buy together. But in this case, like being in the gifts space, it makes sense why these products would fit within very different occasions, very different use cases. So, yeah, I definitely understand that. And I'm glad that you did talk about hijacking and just your way of building defensibility around your business, because that's going to be a potential risk for really any Amazon FBA business that is doing well. At least you get competitors who try to take advantage of your success. So let's talk about the risks a little bit. What do you think are the biggest risks with this business, or just this business model, that you think a buyer should be aware of?
I think, as I touched on there, is the existential kind of risks that could come at you from Amazon or from other sellers. And that was just drummed into me from the start. When you look at selling on FBA, you join forums, you find different groups for getting information, and you see these horror stories, but the horror stories tend to rise to the top, because in 3 years, I've never had a hijacker approach my listings. I've had listings go down for very small reasons, which is a quick email to Amazon just saying, this is just a quick mistake, and they've been back online within 24 hours. Now, I do know that different product lines are far more susceptible to that. But again, these products probably have never really been anything too risky or anything like that. So there's been no reason. But I do live, you are beholden to Amazon every few days when you check your account. If you see a little message from them, you're saying, Craig, I hope this doesn't escalate into anything, because they do have the last say, and you do hear those horror stories. But that is, again, underpinning why the account feedback score and product ratings I've kept exceptionally high, and done everything just to keep Amazon happy, because, as I say, this is a vehicle for managing an investment, and that's probably an important part to do that. And then I suppose you've got natural competition in the space. Once you start doing well, others can see what you're doing. But that comes back to the wider product base, the less exposed you are to that. Of course, we had a pandemic, but we managed to keep everything going, and that had a knock on with shipping prices. But my margins were good enough to absorb any shipping prices, and the shipping agency I use in China was able to share containers and split up the costs there, and really worked well. We're trying to maintain a competitive price on shipping. So there's all those external factors of growing a business, but they've all been manageable, and nothing too terrifying or obstructive has happened yet.
Yeah. And I think with anybody who has experience with Amazon FBA, they are aware of those potential horror stories, just the risks of being involved in Amazon FBA in general. But the two risks that you did mention, going back to just the strength of what you mentioned about your supply chain, two risks being that other competitors could come into the space, and the scenario like the pandemic causing issues with supply chain, and just how many e-commerce owners were impacted by that. The fact that you have a strong supply chain shows its strength is revealed during those times when you have competitors who want to come in. Then they have to figure out, they have to have an answer to a strong supply chain to be able to enter properly. Or if there's a scenario where shipping issues occur, those with the strong supply chain will have the level of success that you've experienced here, which is where you weren't really hindered during this time, but rather that you actually growed all throughout these past 3 years. Just going back to the point about your supply chain being a strong selling point within this business acquisition.
Yeah, it has been. The team in China, we send each other Christmas gifts. We're in touch 24 hours a day during heavy parts of the year when there's orderings going on. And the pity was we had a pandemic, and I haven't been able to get out to visit them. I've been working with them closely for 2 years, and it's only now that China's just opened up. So that's a plan I must act on as well.
Yeah. Okay, well, a few housekeeping questions to wrap this up. How much support are you willing to offer a new buyer?
I'm completely up for helping anyone who wants to get involved. This is the third business I've started, and become very proud of what you've built and would like to see it continue to grow. So once a buyer is interested in working together and it is easy to work with, and I know Empire Flippers probably has a suggested support systems of timelines and things like that, but I'm completely open to working with anyone and getting them up and going with this business.
Yep. Our minimum is 30 days. So anything beyond that is definitely generous. I think it's just to communicate that a support period isn't necessarily indefinite, but definitely appreciate that you're willing to see a buyer succeed with this.
Sure.
Okay. And just confirming that you commit to a non-compete after the business is sold?
Yeah, again, whoever takes his business on, I just want them to work, have a good footing going forward. So that's no problem.
Great. And are you open to something like an earnout?
Yeah, I'm open to all eventualities, and I definitely have a conversation about any structured deal. Obviously, we dig into the details of how those work, and we just have to see what would work for everybody.
Yep. Sounds good. And putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think this is a business worth buying?
Yeah, I think it's back to the mentality I started with, this being somewhere to mind an investment and grow it. And I've built a robust business that is definitely in a position to grow. A good active buyer who learns, who gets to know how this business works, just needs a little bit of creativity to launch products, a lot more products, and scale what's already there and build on the foundations that I put together. So I do see it as a good place to see a capital investment grow. And if I wasn't in this kind of predicament, I would certainly enjoy growing it into the future as well.
Yeah, this business does strike me as one where you could have continued to launch products at an even faster pace if you had the capital and essentially a one-person band doing this. So I think that's a great place to hand off a business because it's a business that's at the point where it's ready to scale for a buyer who has the capital or energy or time or team to be able to do that. So I think this is a good position to be at with the business.
Yeah, I think so. And one thing I didn't touch on is because I'm selling the business, I've stopped launching because there's products in the US, 2 different products, which I haven't yet launched because I just wanted it to stabilize for the sales period. And any potential buyer, there's 2 products there that are brand new and ready to go. So it's kind of primed as well to continue to grow. It's not just I'm giving you what I have, I'm kind of giving, there's a pipeline there as well, which we can discuss obviously in further talks with any potential buyers of look. You're almost been given the first 2 products to just run with and wet your feet. It'd be a good entry point, I think, into this category.
Yeah, able to hit the ground running. Okay. Well, is there anything you'd like to add that you think I might have missed during the interview?
No, I think we covered everything. And they're a pretty good set of questions there. So nothing comes to mind.
Okay. Yeah, I think those were some great answers. And yeah, if anybody else listening to this does have any further questions, especially after looking at the listing, unlocking the listing, I definitely recommend speaking with Alex. So I'm going to wrap this up here. So Alex, thank you so much for sharing your story and joining us on today's episode. And yeah, I hope your business is purchased in the near future and by the right buyer.
Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 66783. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.